Avoidable errors in English language series. Would rather and would rather plus an object. So there are two things here now. There is a difference between would rather and would rather plus an object. What's an object? An object sometimes can be let's just say an object in a sentence or in a clause structure is the receiver of the action that is performed by the subject in a sentence. So we have the subject performs an action, then the action is performed and expected to be received by an object. This object is usually a noun phrase or a noun clause, depending on the structure, but it must be a noun, even when it has a pronoun or any other classes of words that actually function as a noun, but it must be regarded as a noun. So whenever we want to use rather, would rather and would rather plus an object, there are two things we must use there. So one, if we are using would rather, then the verb tense to be used should be present tense, plural present tense. That is the verb tense to be used. Meaning we can have something like I would rather leave now. I would rather go there today. So we can have things like that. So it must be in the present form. Then each time we are now using would rather plus an object like you, then the verb to be used must be in the past tense. So it is wrong, it is right to say I would rather go now. But it is wrong to say I would rather you go now. So the right thing should be I would rather go now, then the other right thing should be what now? I would rather you went. I know it sounds somehow very upset, but that is the rule. The rule says whenever you use would rather plus an object, it now comes after it a pronoun, then it must tend to the what now? To the past tense. And the reason why it's changing to the past tense is because you're actually not referring to yourself directly. You are actually putting another person in their particular position to perform an action. So anytime we have that, it is not different from what we usually have in I wish I were, yet you are not. So that is why we also say something like what now? I would rather he left immediately. I would rather they spoke their mind. I would rather they met the management. Not I would rather they meet the management. Wrong. So I would rather leave now is very correct. But I would rather you leave now is wrong. The right thing is what now? I would rather you left. So I would rather leave is correct, but I would rather you left is the correct thing whenever you use it in that context. So let's avoid that. We can have sentences like I would rather start my class early. So another person will say what now? I would rather you started your class early. Somebody can say, I would rather run some checks on this machine. And another person says, now, I would rather the engineer run some tests on this machine. So I can say, I will rather listen to the language doctor. Another person will say what now? I would rather you or she or they, the children, listened to the language doctor. So avoidable errors, let's take note of them.